happening, everybody? My name is Julius.
I'm Brian.
Brian's up there with that lag, but I understand why. Because, I mean, I'm excited too. I'm excited to talk about this film with Brian because I think Brian i- spiritually is very invested in a film like this because this film actually does delve into spirituality when it comes to horror films, kind of more so than any other we've talked about, Brian. I mean, maybe a contender could be Carrie.
Mhm.
But with this,
Or
Will
even
and
Midsummer.
Midsummer, with this, spirituality, faith, and will are tested. And the movie that we're talking about is The Mist. It came out in 2007. It was directed by Frank Darabont. It's based on Stephen King's novel. The Mist is a movie, okay, about this man and his little boy. They go to the supermarket one morning. They run into all these people. There's a big like hurricane coming. It's forecasted that there's going to be some bad weather, so everyone's trying to stock up. But on the way to the market, they see military like just like headed the other direction, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, so they're going to go through like a training exercise. What's going on? We don't have to worry about it. They get to this market, and suddenly this insanely fast and growing mist surrounds everything, and it's freaky. Anyone would be frightened by it because you don't know what's going on. And then they're all trapped. They all try to work together at first, but once the religious fundamentalist comes in and starts taking the credit for what's happening, everyone gets rowdy, mobs are formed, sides are taken, and wildness ensues. So, Brian, with The Mist, you told me before this that you loved the film. When did you first watch it? What specifically about the story spoke to you?
Well, I was going to say that was a really great leadway into how this movie does delve into the act of spirituality and what do people do when they're compromised with something that does go either against or for their faith.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, I first watched this movie when I was 10 years old. I watched the original cut first with the
Jesus, dude.
black and white, and it really freaked me out. And then 2 years later, I decided to watch it again with a couple of friends uh, of the colored version. I prefer the black and white version because it gives a little bit more depth into how the film was supposed to be reviewed as, especially within the whole book and how Stephen King wrote. But yeah,
And
the
also,
movie.
it black and white. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Oh no, you're totally fine.
a black and white filter will help, like, kind of uh, mask some of the effects that aren't the best
Mhm.
in the
Yes,
colored version, because some of the CG isn't the best. I'm sure a black and
yes.
white filter makes it look better.
No, yeah, the black and white does make it look a little bit more practical.
Mhm.
It's really interesting to see where they went with the whole colored version. I mean, I understand with mainstream audiences may not appreciating black and white anymore because of how
Right.
much years of our vision has been adapted to. But one of my favorite films that kind of reminded me of it was watching The Lighthouse. It
Oh
was a
yeah.
great movie with Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. Uh, there is some scenes I would say that are kind of hard to see with the black and white, but it really does give you that sense of that they are in this despair area and that they're just by themselves. And I feel like that's the
Yeah.
same thing with the mist, where everything is around them and they are in this room of despair and they have no other choice but to just slowly die off within this room.
Yeah, and no one is willing to go out because for one thing, it's pretty frightening just how quickly the mist takes over the building. Uh, that enough is enough to make someone worried about driving. You don't want to hit anything, but then crazy stuff starts to happen. Creatures start showing up, tentacles start showing up, people start going missing, and of course, there's the um, one woman who is very distant because of her faith. She's like complete, like Old Testament, like she's down with the cause. In the supermarket, she becomes. Uh,
She virtually becomes Carrie's mother, a very
she does.
yeah, and down to, within her own faith, but willing to torture others to sort of show that her point is true.
I mean, what she's really doing is looking for control. She is
Mm-hmm.
really the villain within this story, which is one of the, I, in my opinion, one of the better parts of the film, because at first I didn't like it because of her character. I didn't like the movie because of her character. Um, because realistically, I think someone would shut her up, honestly. I mean, like, just bitch, would you shut the you know what I mean? Because she really does go on and on and on. You know what I mean? In real life, someone would probably say, dude, shut the hell, don't even listen to her, don't even listen to her, because she's not doing anything productive. She's just trying to scare people so that what happens in the
Using the
end
fear
happens.
of others, yeah.
Of faith, yeah, of their faith, you know.
Mhm.
And it's hard to argue, honestly. It is hard to argue with all the things that are happening, because that's one of the brilliant parts of the character's writing, is that she's not just religious or, you know, filled with faith or anything. She's a
She's the
opportunist,
ultimate religious person.
but she's an opportunist. So she takes this opportunity to really get her points across people, turning atheists into, you know, religiously feared people. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, but aside, and we'll get into that whole religion, you know, discussion,
Of
because it's a
course.
very big part of it. But how did
Oh
you
no, yeah, it's a very amazingly well done.
absolutely? So how did you fear? How did you feel
Fear.
about the way this film was executed, the story, the characters, and more importantly, the atmosphere? And there's
I will
that lag
say,
again.
oh, there's that lag. Yeah, I don't think the lag is there anymore. But I'll be quick with my thing before the lag gets me. I will say, just like your point that you didn't really like the religious fanatic during the beginning of the film, and then towards the end, you sort of saw the reasoning behind her character and why she's in the film. I felt the same way with the majority of the other characters. I really wasn't the biggest fans of them, or I saw some characters like, oh, they're typecasted for this role or this way, and I feel like, oh, these military guys are going to be like the heroes at the end of the day, and it's going to be one of those feel good sort of, oh, we're going to make it out. But no, it totally does a 180. The
Nope.
military people kill themselves. Actually, the entire people who supported the military, you would imagine, actually throw them into the fire that they
Yeah.
sort of created because of this whole religious fanatic gets the majority of people to sort of arm against them own selves, saying that they caused this entire fear and they caused this situation upon them. And you get some of the more reasonable people within the actual film who are sort of the last hope of the remaining children and the people who are maybe not so in tone in religion to sort of leave the area. And finally, with the most shocking ending of almost all film, which I feel like I don't want to really talk about the ending because I feel like for some people who have never seen this movie, they really should watch this movie.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll do a spoiler alert.
We will. Well, later
Yeah.
we'll talk about the very end, because that's
Mm-hmm.
something I do want to discuss
So
with
yeah.
you about. But yeah, you're completely right. The way that this film turns from a crazy horror science fiction film to just a social commentary about how people are easily swayed. What everything you're saying really does remind me of what made The Host frightening. You know, it wasn't the monster; it was the people. It was the reactionist reaction, and that was freaky in this film, and it got me angry. It got me frightened. And when that, you know, when that lady, I mean, spoilers once again, when she got hers, the religious woman, I mean, I'm never like, yeah, bitch, but well, at least her rhetoric won't
Keep hurting on people.
keep hurting
Yeah.
people, right? It won't go any further to the point where now,
I mean, it will
you know,
still keep hurting people because she did leave such a huge impact, but her
yeah.
herself, I mean, she may be viewed as a martyr, but as long as she's not, still alive within sort of coercing people into doing even more crazier things.
Right. Yeah. And also, once this mist does clear up, these people are going to have to answer to the
Mm-hmm.
authority, you know, to the
Sure.
military. Like, what the hell is going on in here?
And I will say, I love the whole symbolism of relating to the mist, how the host does the whole thing where it's about the environment, about government hiding things from the people and then blaming it on them. I feel like that's the whole thing with the mist. It's like, it's not about the creatures, it's about the peoples themselves. And so that's why you can't see anything else, because it's sort of people's clouded judgments and fear of others.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a perfect way of saying it. And also, I mean, the mist, this goes without saying, but it is fear of the unknown. you know, and I do love that everyone has their own interpretation of what the mist is. You know, there's obviously the religious interpretation, there's the scientific interpretation, there's that point where the military soldier, he's explaining what happened, right? He's explaining why this happened. There were scientists who were like opening portals to other dimensions, and it sounds ridiculous when he says it, but that's easily spun, right? They easily spin it. It's like, oh, you were testing God's will, you were doing this, you were perversing nature, you know. And look what happened. You know, all these creatures start showing up. I know that within Stephen King's writing, there is a multiverse idea. You know, certain books connect with each other. I've not read The Mist itself, but I think it is cool how this teases that multiverse within
Mhm.
Stephen King's writings, you know, because we all know that Pennywise, the clown from It, is connected to these cosmic beings and, you know, the turtle of reality. There's the Dark Tower, which connects all Stephen King's worlds together. And it was really cool that they showed, you know, elements of that within this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel that. It's sort of the same way how H.P. Lovecraft's books sort of have like a spiritual slash ethereal connection with all of them.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, if they did do a movie, I mean, I know they did the Dark Tower film a couple of years ago, but that wasn't a big success. But if they
Mhm.
did like a movie or a series about the universe of Stephen King, they could easily connect, like show this like footage from this. You know what I mean? It
Oh
would
yeah, obviously.
completely fit, completely, or they could at least show some of the creatures that were in this film. You know, like there's that really great shot of one when they're escaping at the very end. They come across this giant lumbering monster.
Hmm.
It looks like Lovecraftian and it looks beautiful. And that was one of the few special effects that worked because it was hidden in the mist. You know, it wasn't like a tentacle that looked like some, you know, PS2
PS2
cutscene.
graphics, yeah.
um, yeah. So, what did you think about the characters within this? Did you think that they were fully developed? Do you think they were relatable? What did you think about them?
Well, I would say that they're very. I'm so sorry. I totally forget his name sometimes. The guy who makes these movies and TV shows. The
Frank
guy who
Darabont?
Frank Darabont. I totally
Yeah.
yeah. Frank Darabont. He has a really great cast with him. You know, he all these people are great friends with him, and they all really connect well with each other. You see this with The Walking Dead and other movies that they've been a part of.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
There are
they're
some Walking Dead actors in this
mhm,
film, and Frank Darabont helped with the development of that show,
mhm.
and it was great at the beginning.
Yeah. And then AMC was like, no,
Uh,
we want to make money. But no, I think that the characters themselves are, you could say, bland. You know, like the characters written themselves are not the most interesting, but the
mhm.
people who are portraying them, the actors themselves, really make the film great.
Yeah, especially the woman who plays the. I mean, you've seen this actress everywhere, but she
Mhm.
plays the religious fundamentalist in this movie. She's incredible in it.
Oh yeah, amazing.
Yeah, she's really good. Thomas Jane, I thought was fine in it. I like Thomas Jane usually, and I thought he was really, you know, fine in this. Um, there was the actress from The Walking Dead who I believe she played Andrea, the blonde woman.
Yeah,
I thought she was really good in it. And there was the black actor who was in Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer.
yeah,
Much better in this than in that. Better, well,
yes.
better utilized within the story than that movie.
Mhm.
Um, that movie sucked. But yeah, you're right. I think that the characters themselves are okay. They are pushed to a certain limit, especially by the end. You know, like
Yes, extremely.
Jesus, and we'll talk about that ending because I felt very conflicted on it. Um, one thing, Brian, I wanted to ask you since you are a man of faith, I'm
Thank
curious
you.
how. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm curious how this impacted that, if at all. How did you feel as a man of faith watching this movie and you see the dark side of not? I'm not going to say religion, but of faith. You know, and
I
how
was
it's
gonna say I
used.
would use, yeah, the corruption of how faith could be used to
Yeah.
utilize against people. I totally. I mean, it doesn't really do anything against sort of my belief in faith, you
Right.
could say, but it does show an opening on how corrupt people can use and abuse faith to sort of get their point of view. You know, it's
Right.
very similar to a lot of historical things that have happened during the days where people like Charles Manson. You know, he used faith to abuse and eventually change people's sort of view and output on life to do murder and to do
Yeah.
satanic rituals, but in their minds it was seen as good. And I think that it's the same thing, is that when people are desperate and they are from a situation of life and death, they are going to go with someone who is perceived or the most charismatic, or the person who is saying that, oh, you see this is evidence of that.
Right.
Simpsons did it.
The
The Simpsons
Simpsons,
did it.
yeah,
You
they
got to believe
predicted
in
it.
it.
They
But I
predicted
feel,
it.
yeah, it's the corruption and the abuse of faith that allows these people to sort of get their points of views to corrupt others.
I love what you said about how people have a tendency to look towards the people who
Mhm,
connect the dots, as it were. Let's say
mhm,
there's a famous fan edit, famous for decades at this point, of The Wizard of Oz syncing up with Dark Side of the Moon, right? By Pink Floyd. And there's it's a trick of the brain, honestly. You know, like the brain sees what it wants to see, and you see all these connections with the lyrics and how the songs transition in the album along with the film. And it is freaky. Like, you know, you start thinking, did they make this album to connect with The Wizard of Oz?
mhm,
When the actuality is it's probably a really insane coincidence. You know what I
mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
It's dope, but it's a coincidence, you know. And the pro what really did get me more mad about this movie while watching it, when this religious woman is just spouting all this crap, you know, like, oh, this is it, this is it, this is the end of the world, is that there was no one there with a valid argument against it. I
Mhm.
mean, I think that was the deciding factor in how this became a mob more so than a community.
Sure.
Because, I mean, who would be there, right? I mean, the soldiers, they're grunts. They don't know any. They're not physicists. They don't know what's actually happening.
Mhm.
Even when he gave his explanation of what happened, it it wasn't enough, because he's not even a an expert. And I feel like it's similar to what's going on this year, right? With people
Mhm.
who believe in coronavirus, who don't believe in it. What, you know, like what will it take for some people to believe that this shit is actually happening? You know, oh,
Sure.
it's just the conspiracy, man. You know, it's really uncanny how I mean, look at me, I'm connecting the dots right now. You know, to this
Well,
movie,
even
to
yo,
that.
he said Simpsons did it. It's got to be true.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, man, and I think this
I was
movie
gonna
really
say,
take care
I
of
was
it.
gonna say, I was gonna do a little side plot from that, from what you were saying, how no one who was in the hierarchy, a scientist or someone who knew what was going on,
Right.
wasn't able to combat against that. I will bring the point of someone who is a religious believer also, but who knows the word and who doesn't want to use it, or not saying that she was using the word specifically as she was an evil person. Maybe it was just the drastic sense of the area that made her into such a cruel person. But I was surprised that no one else of faith was able to challenge her and saying that this doesn't really show in the Bible. These aren't really
Right.
signs of the end time themselves. There's some signals of this. There are some creatures that are coming out of nowhere, but us as believers, we wouldn't be here. Does this show that
Right.
we are not true believers? So then this isn't the end times. We don't really have to be afraid, you know? I was really surprised that there wasn't someone else of faith to challenge her faith.
I completely agree, and I wonder how an interaction like that would go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason why that didn't happen is because this is much more of a commentary on mob mentality. Because, I mean,
True.
look at politics for instance, right? You
Yes.
can say certain words that will win people over,
Oh
right?
yeah.
You can, like, there are certain words that are key to
Mm-hmm.
winning someone over, or crowds of people. Patriotism is
True.
one of these words.
Mm-hmm. Or
Patriotism
bringing up
is
9/11. So if you
you
win
know,
a whole
nine
lot,
eleven,
yeah.
the flag, kneeling, what? You know what I mean? Like that type of stuff. They're trigger words.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this movie really delved into that with that character, where
Mm-hmm.
it explored how these words were used to make, to execute. I mean, there were sacrifices at a certain point.
Yeah,
Terrifying, terrifying. Honestly, hordes of people, like, kill the kid, kill the child. Right? That is,
that was
it's
yeah, that
nuts,
was
man.
yeah. Oh yeah, it started getting wild. I honestly, man, it's such a great movie.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man, get the fuck out. But, and by the way, I think it's interesting how Frank Darabont is fascinated with Stephen King's work. This, and you compare it to other movies that he's directed, like Shawshank Redemption. Even Stephen King stories, like, those are so separate. You wouldn't even imagine that they're from the same writer and director.
Mhm.
You know what I
From the
mean?
same mind of his, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, the way that he approached The Mist, completely different from how he approached Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile, and it's all coming from the same author. It just shows how versatile a director Frank Darabont is, you know?
Truly.
I mean, I love Shawshank Redemption. I love that.
Oh no, yeah, me too.
Wait, hold on, hold on. I love it.
I love it.
Shawshank Redemption. I'm loving it.
I love it.
If only they had Big Macs in Shawshank Redemption.
If only.
Okay, Brian. Do you have any? Oh, right. We have to talk about the ending. We have
The
to talk
ending,
about the
yeah.
ending. So, how did you feel about the ending?
I felt really depressed. I didn't want to leave my room for an entire week because that ending really uh, made me. All right, can I actually go into a little depth of why it's such a great ending?
Oh, well, I think that's completely fair because I'm going to go into why it's a bad ending.
All right, that's completely fair. A little contrast and contradiction. The
Yeah.
reason why I enjoy the ending is that I will say there's some parts that don't make sense. The build up to it, with certain people being killed and certain people not being killed, like there's one sense of how the monsters do work, and then in the next minute they're completely different, which makes no sense from just a written
They're
standpoint.
punks.
They're punks, yeah, basically. But there's one point where the father, the main character that we follow throughout this entire journey, has breaks down in his car, and there's no more gas in their car,
Yep.
and he has to sacrifice everyone's lives, and he takes a magnum and he shoots his own child, one of the women, and two of the elders. I believe so, right? It's
Yeah.
five
Yeah.
people included with him. And finally, at the last minute, he tries to shoot himself, and the bullet doesn't work.
Right.
So from that, he's in screaming agony and a pain that he just shot his own child, and he can't kill himself. So he takes a moment to recollect himself and to jump out of his car and to let the elements take him, let the monsters of the
Yeah, he's
mist
calling
take
them.
his life. Yeah,
Come get me, you bastard!
come get me.
I'm the Punisher.
I'm the Punisher. And at that moment, the military comes out of nowhere and saves them.
And the
he
mist
just
clears,
kills-
by the way. The
The
mist,
mist clear. The
it's
mist
over.
is no longer there. It's
The
over.
invasion
Yes.
is over.
The
Yeah.
military comes out of nowhere. The population, the people, everyone starts coming in. They start burning all the monsters, and this father is just out here crying, devastated that he just killed his own child from just moments away of being free. And it is.
And he looks
such
to
a-
the camera and he's like, "Arr?"
He's like,
The Curb Your Enthusiasm theme starts playing.
oh yeah.
Wait, hello? Are you?
Oh no, I'm there. I'm here.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry for interrupting. Are you
Oh
done?
no, oh no, you're good.
Okay. So for you, why did this ending work?
Hmm?
Why
Why
did
did
this
this
ending
work?
why did this ending work for you?
The ending worked for me because I thought it shows how people are really desperate to sort of get with peace. You know, they're
Mm-hmm.
when they feel like their lives are over, they feel like death is the only way to sort of clear their mind of any more pain on the world. And so
Right.
he wanted that for his son to no longer live in pain of this world with everything seeming to them that it was the end of the world. They can't even leave a supermarket. Now they're on the run and their car's broken down. They feel like they'll die at any moment.
Right.
I understand why he did that. But I feel like because it deals with so much with religious faith and religious content, I felt like he should have known, or at least the characters around them should have known that they could have just waited a little bit more longer, you know?
Right. So for you, you enjoyed the ending because it did show the conflict that was brewed, because this conflict made everyone question themselves, and also it changed them. You know, it changed how what they believe protection really is, right?
Mhm.
Because at the beginning, it's let's board up the doors, right? Board up the windows. Let's
Mhm.
fight back, right? But that proved not to work.
Yeah.
So now let's just take ourselves out. That's the ultimate way of reaching peace, reaching protection, and no more suffering, right? That's where you're coming from?
Yeah. Basically, like they tried everything. They've been
Right.
working on everything, and it's shown to be fruitless. And they feel like, then what is the point of going on? What is the movement of even thinking about anything that will come and save us? And I feel like that speaks a lot for people who feel like that. You know, there's a sort of mentality of I keep on trying, I keep on working on my life, but for
Yeah.
some reason, it's always bringing me back down, and it feels like there's no point on living on.
You know, I think that's a fair way of looking at that ending. I wouldn't blame like you stupid for thinking that way. No, I wouldn't say that. But you are, and also,
But you are. You're not thinking as a moviegoer like
you're
me.
not thinking as a human being.
But I actually am
Um,
interested in your way because I don't think I've ever heard you why you don't like this movie.
right. Well, I like the movie a lot.
I
I
mean,
do. It's the
not
ending
the
that
ending. Sorry.
yeah, it's the ending that I'm not a fan of. The ending, I think, his action, his choices were limited at that moment. Obviously, right? What else was he going to do? My problem with it is that I think his choice speaks against his whole character progression within the film and his duty to protect his son at all costs, right?
Mhm. Oh, I can
I
definitely
just
see that. Yeah.
yeah, I just him shooting his son, I think is completely it just goes against all the work that had been put, that had
Mhm.
happened throughout the whole film. The struggle I felt was just diminished at that point.
Mhm.
It didn't remind me to this extent, but I was thinking about Deadpool 2, where you have a post-credit scene where he gets a fucking time machine and he
Yeah.
goes back and he undoes the whole film
Undoes everything.
and
Yeah.
he doesn't learn anything, nothing, none of that happened. Oh, I get what I want in the very end. There's no sacrifice. You know what I mean? And obviously with this scene there is sacrifice, but I just felt like the action had gone against the point of the film.
Everything that he's done. Yeah.
Yeah,
That he has been doing everything, fought every single monster, trying and through to protect his child. And at
protect
the
his
end,
son.
the ultimate person to end his child's life and to make his child in danger was himself.
I mean, like you put the child first, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to come at this in a moral direction, because this movie is not about morality. I mean, it is about morality, but it's not about how people are moral. It's about how their morality can be bent. You right? So I do get why it went in that direction, but for me, it just wasn't sufficient, because I just felt that his character, I just don't see him shooting his kid and these other people, especially when you're right. They could have just waited. They don't know exactly. They don't, for one thing, they don't know how far they've gone, and they don't know whether this is going to end or not.
True.
So rather than just be so like irrational, and that's easier said than done because it is a heightened situation. But what I'm saying is that, what if you were in that situation? Would you just say, "Oh, well, that's it," bam, bam,
No, yeah,
bam,
I will
boom?
say
You wouldn't think about it.
the average person would not do that. I think the average person would wait on, especially people of faith, or actually no, I think that some people of faith would automatically just take themselves out of the equation. A lot of people who were not of faith would just mostly just wait. That's what I think.
Yeah, and I do get that this is a film about people who are pushed to the limit.
Mm-hmm.
Like their fear is escalated. I understand that, but not even coming up with any other like salute. Like, hey, what if we did this? What if we did that? What could we do?
Yeah.
Hey, did you try the radio? Maybe we got so far away that maybe a radio can work. Maybe like, God damn it.
No, yeah, I definitely feel your anger. And I was gonna say, I don't know if you've seen the TV show of The Mist. I mean,
Oh,
it's
no,
not the
I've not.
greatest compared to the movie. The movie's way better, but I do feel like they do delve a lot into like there is more rational people within the show except for when it comes to like the people who are affected by the mist, then you really get to see like a lot of people become very fearful and start killing random people and children too.
Yeah, I understand, and I'm glad to hear that because it is a series where, you need to have characters continue until other seasons, so there has to be that level of rationale in it. Uh, I don't know. That's why I'm not a big fan of that. Just shoot your kid, I don't. And then it's just like right after, moments later,
Immediately, yeah.
the army show like, where were you, mother? What?
I will say it is for the, and I feel like this is I remember there's someone who talks about this, how it's a very Western, and I always hate using that term, but it is indeed a very Western idea about like family and stuff like that. With a lot of Western movies like to do is like they like to evoke familial pain, right? They like
Right.
to put like the family is the most important thing, and that is true. Family is the most important thing, but then it shows like something very unirrational. Shoots his kid, and then mere seconds later, the military comes out of nowhere. Versus like they could have taken their time, maybe a day later, or maybe he even, at the last moment,
Surprised no
it's
one's done
very
a Curb Your Enthusiasm meme moment
on
of
that
that
whole moment.
dun dun dun. you know, I, I don't know, man.
So yeah,
It came off as kind of comical, especially when the that music starts coming in, where you have the
yeah,
lady singing, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And then he goes to his knees and starts driving.
He
Oh,
starts crying. Yeah, man.
like oh god, I don't know, man. Not a fan of it. No,
Well,
sir. Don't
yeah.
like it.
Well, this was a great movie that we talked about today.
Well, I have a movie question, so don't try to
Oh,
wrap it
movie
up, Brian.
question. Yes.
Who do you think? You're the
Um,
first to go in the mist.
I I swear.
See,
I'll
Brian
be
thinks he'll be the religious
Oh
leader,
my god, I
but he'll be
swear.
the first one to. You'll be the redneck.
I thought you were. I'm gonna be the stock boy, and the boy who gets taken by the
Yeah, exactly.
by the bad CGI.
Yeah, the tentacle. You're done.
All right, movie question.
So, Brian, aside from the
Mhm,
mist, because the mist, I think, is a very effective film. It gets
mhm,
you invested emotionally to the point where you get angry, you get sad, you're like scared.
mhm,
And I think a lot of it has to do with the twisting of faith. And
mhm.
I think we can both agree on that.
Oh
So,
yeah.
what is another horror film, if you can think of one, that uses religious fundamentalism to the best of its ability?
Hmm. Well, I have two options for that. I would
Let's
say
hear it.
Carrie does an amazing
Hmm.
description of how people use faith as a tool against fear.
Yeah.
Sort of implying that, oh, if you have your first period, that means you're a sinner, or if you just have any inkling of thought of being sort of human, then you're a sinner and stuff like that. And I think it shows like how people become to the max of trying to make sure that their children stay pure. And that's the whole thing about religion, is making sure that people stay pure. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that using that to sort of escalate such a sense of, abuse for a
Yeah.
child, that is where it comes wrong. And I would say another film that does uh, the whole thing of religion really well is the Witch,
Oh
or
yeah.
the Witch, the
The
way
bitch.
the Vivitch, this thou like the
The
taste of butter.
the bitch.
I will say it does that one a little bit more better too, where it sort of shows how
It's set during Puritan times, right?
it is set during
Yeah.
1683, I believe, or 1673. It talks about the first ever Puritans ever and stuff like that. And I feel like it does a lot more good in there because it actually is during a period of how religious beliefs did affect the lives of people during that
Yeah.
time, especially with I forget, the Salem witch trials. It does
Yes.
talk about that whole.
And the Scarlet Letters,
Mhm.
the ostracization of people, just how extremity was the norm.
The Vivitch does a great example, and Carrie.
Yeah, absolutely. Some I want to add quickly. The Omen, Red State, The
Mm.
Exorcist, the original Wicker Man, not the one with
Mhm.
Nicolas Cage. I think that one is epic. And yeah, I think that's a great points you made. Great points we all made.
Mhm.
Thank you all for listening. I'm excited to talk about the next one. Peace out. Brian, where can they find you?
Find me at Video Warrior 51 on Instagram, Twitter, and on YouTube. Thank you very much for having me at the Goat Movie Podcast, Julius.
Of course. Okay, Brian. I'll talk to you later.
And happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween.
The GOAT Podcast is proof you don't have to look any further for movie news, reviews, trailer reactions, or special discussions. Subscribe, get notified about what's going on, and I promise you'll be entertained by our daily content on YouTube. If you want more, we're on Twitter at GOAT Film Podcast, Instagram The GOAT Podcast, and the GOAT Movie Group on Facebook. Get connected with us, see what's happening, and make sure to love it while you're doing so.